I mean, that's a great question. It all stems from the biggest shift in money since coinage was invented over 1,000 years ago. I mean, before AD, before Jesus was born. In short, we're moving as a civilization from a philosophy of theism to a philosophy of humanism to eventually, and this is what we're seeing, to a philosophy of dataism. And I'll explain all of what that means. Take medicine as an example. It used to be when you were sick, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, you'd pray to God, or whatever your God was, you'd pray to a God to be healthier. In some societies, you might sacrifice an animal or go to the local shaman or whatever. That's theism, this belief that a higher power will cure all of your ills in medicine. This eventually turned into humanism, obviously, because now when you're feeling sick, you go to a human, you go to the doctor, you tell them your symptoms, they put a hammer on your knee, they pat you on the back and make you cough, they give you a diagnosis and say, take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning. Point is, you depended on humanism, a belief in your doctor and his medical training. Now, in every industry, not just medicine, but all of them, we've kind of evolved, and we're starting to evolve into what I call dataism with our health, for instance. We use a Fitbit, we get blood work, we get an MRI, we get an EEG, we have robotic surgery, we can understand our genetic coding, we can use genetic coding to strip out deadly diseases. In the medical industry, everything has moved from a belief in God to save us, and a belief in human doctors to save us, to now a belief that data plays a more and more important role in curing our ills. And again, I bet you can go through every industry and find this shift from theism to humanism to dataism. This is really important to understand, and most people don't grasp this when looking at money and cryptocurrencies. But it's really important, because just look at how much money you could have made, and again, in the medical industry, playing on this idea. You could have been buying the right pharmaceutical stocks that relied on data. For instance, a pharma company named Biogen has seen its stock go up 10,000%. Amgen has seen its stock soar an astounding 176,000%. Celgene has gone up 44,860%. That's what happened in medicine, but it's happening in everything. Accounting, the legal profession, the military, you name it. Everything is moving from a kind of belief in a higher power or God that will help us, to a belief that humans and human innovation will help us, to finally a belief and trust in data. Now, I'm not saying anything negative about someone's personal beliefs in religion or God. The point is only about what's driving innovation. For example, look at the oil industry. It used to be you'd stick a drill in the ground, you'd take a guess, where should we drill? Stick a drill in the ground and pray for oil. It was the only way you could have energy to fuel the world. Every industry needed oil. Then drillers who knew what they were doing, these called wildcatters, trusted gut instincts that would tell them where the oil was. In short, humanistic. But now, even that's shifting too. Here's an example. I recently made an investment into a new oil company. The company is 100% reliant on the latest innovation in geological data called 3D seismic data. We go into abandoned wells completely abandoned by humans. We find oil exactly where the computer tells us where oil is. We're only reliant on the data. In short, dataism. Does this make sense? It works every time in every industry you can think of. I could talk about the legal industry. I could talk about the military and warfare. I could talk about the food industry. Everything is going in this order. Theism to humanism to dataism. And
you're saying the same thing's going to happen with money?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, it's already happening with our money. Let's look at a dollar bill. Hold on a second. What's this?
That would be a $100 bill.
What are the words on the back?
In God we trust.
So it starts off as a reminder of our theism roots, that in God we trust. Oh, trust this $100 bill because it says in God we trust. And that helped us because many people believe in God. So we had to trust in a God to believe that the money had value. But then this became a government-backed currency. Like on the back of the $100 bill, there's Independence Hall, where the U.S. government first started. There's Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers. So and there's the signature. This is backed by the Secretary of the Treasury. So it's this enormous belief in the humans of our government that allow us to trust what's essentially a $100 bill. We imagine that this is $100. We believe that we have a contract with the government, and if that doesn't work, at least in God we trust. So theism and humanism baked into this bill. We have so much faith in a government-backed currency that we let them print out trillions of dollars like this. But eventually, humanism fades just like theism fades. That's what this is ultimately worth. They try everything to stop it, of course. They put the pyramid with the eye on the... What is a pyramid with an eye doing on the $1 bill? Are there people still believing in the Egyptian gods or pharaohs? They try everything. They say the U.S. government never defaults. They'll do everything to back up either theism or humanism so you don't lose the faith in the dollar. But it's all just based on faith.
And you're saying there's been a shift in faith with money, just like what we're seeing in medicine and other industries.
Exactly right. The next evolutionary phase in this process is exactly dataism. It has to happen to solve all the problems caused by theism and humanism. All a cryptocurrency is data and processing. That's all there is to it. Currency is going to move towards data, just like every other industry has evolved towards data. We already have seen the beginnings of it. Think of all the places where you're forced to use credit cards instead of cash. In general, the direction of currency has already been moving towards the basics of data, and it doesn't bode well to the future of the US dollar either. You can't print up $1.5 trillion without consequences, including people losing faith in the humanistic institutions behind it, like, for instance, the Federal Reserve banks.
This makes sense. But how do you go from the big idea behind cryptocurrencies to the chance to get 100,000% returns from using your secret?
Well, I'm using a very simple model. So simple, once I say it, you'll see it's all clear. In the US alone, there's $1.5 trillion in government-backed currency out there. That's the demand for currency, 1.5 trillion. People need that cash. The demand for currency is only going to go higher. That's why we keep printing dollars. Meanwhile, there's actually a limited supply of legitimate cryptocurrencies out there. Let's say the market capitalization of one of these cryptocurrencies is currently at 500 million. Now let's say, for reasons I'll explain in a minute, everyone decides to convert their US dollars into this particular crypto. What's going to happen? Well, if you do the math, from 500 million to $1.5 trillion, that's a 300,000% increase in value. And that's real. That's the actual spread between the demand for money and legitimate cryptocurrencies. But there's something else really crazy about this.
What's that?
When this hypothetical crypto goes global, it's going to add trillions more in value. It has to, because that's the demand for it. That's the demand for money. And cryptocurrencies solve the problems that money has, just in the same way in every other industry. Dataism has solved the problems of humanism, which solve the problems of theism. Now, billions, trillions, these seem like crazy numbers, but remember, we're talking about a new form of money. And right now, how much money on the planet is in the form of paper money? The answer is nearly all of it. Of course, nobody can predict what this exact number will be, but based on this model, I'm very comfortable saying one or more of these cryptocurrencies could reach at least 100,000% in returns, and sooner than you might believe. This is why the history of money has to go in this direction, because money is always evolving into something more transportable, more anonymous, and a better store of value. For example, if you have US dollars, you can't use them in Mexico because you need pesos. If you go to a bank, convert your dollars into pesos, someone at the bank knows all about it, and you've lost all your privacy. Then if you actually send your money to someone in Mexico, it has to go through a local reserve bank, the Central Reserve Bank, the international wiring system, the local bank in Mexico, down to the person in Mexico you're sending your money to. Every step of the way, there's transactions, there's people looking at what you're doing, there's maybe government organizations looking at what you're doing. There's so much opportunity for human error, transaction fees, forgery, loss of privacy. So cryptocurrencies solve all of these problems. With cryptocurrencies, they are literally codes containing information. Memorize your codes and you can take your money anywhere, which means you can literally cross borders with $1 billion stored in your head.
Is this privacy